This presentation is a short introduction to the following videos in this section related to Junior Cycle Science Planning. It might be helpful for you to have a copy of the science specification to hand, as well as your learning outcomes poster and list of action verbs used in the learning outcomes. A PDF and interactive versions of the specification can be found at curriculumonline.ie. A PDF of the learning outcomes poster and a PDF of the action verbs can be found on jct.ie. Here is a reminder of the guiding principles for working with learning outcomes. Firstly, select the learning outcomes that you're going to work with for a lesson or series of lessons. Then, consider a number of tools for helping you to work with the learning outcomes. These include unpacking the learning outcomes into understanding, skills and values, identifying and familiarizing yourself with the meaning of the action verbs used in the learning outcomes as a way of providing clarity as to what the outcomes are expecting of the student. Finally, and very importantly, through considering how the learning outcomes from the nature science strand can be realized through the content and activities of the contextual strand learning outcomes that you are working with. Next, you might like to consider ways in which you could gather evidence that would demonstrate that students have experienced the learning within the learning outcomes that you have selected. And finally, just some important reminders. Firstly, that it is not expected of you that you have to complete a learning outcome in one go every time you meet it. You can meet and revisit learning outcomes at many different points throughout junior cycle in a touchstone way and through layering the learning. And finally, once again, just that very important reminder with regards to having a nature science focus in every single lesson that you teach, so that the nature science learning outcomes don't become all of it some of the time, but rather some of it all of the time. For a more detailed discussion on each of these guiding principles, please view the guided presentation on working with learning outcomes on this page. So how did we get started with junior cycle planning? Well, the first thing we did was that the science team formed a subject department and we held a subject department meeting. In this meeting, we selected the learning outcomes that we were going to work with for a period of time. The time period that we chose was from September to the October midterm break. From our learning outcomes poster, we selected the learning outcomes that we were choosing to work with, which were Earth and Space Learning Outcome 3, Physical World Learning Outcomes 1 and 2, Biological World Learning Outcome 1, and Chemical World Learning Outcomes 2 and 4. Because we knew we didn't need to complete the entire learning outcome within this time period, we chose to touch on different aspects of the learning outcomes. So in Earth and Space Learning Outcome 3, we chose to focus on mass and size. In Physical World Learning Outcomes 1 and 2, we chose to focus on measuring and calculating length, area and volume. In the case of Biological World Learning Outcome 1, we chose to address the whole learning outcome in this case, as we felt this was one that could stand alone for this unit of work. And finally, in Chemical World Learning Outcomes 2 and 4, we chose to focus on solids, liquids, gases, particle model and changes of state. With regards to the nature of science, we left the nature of science focus to the discretion of the teacher for this unit of work, although we could have decided a common nature of science focus as you might decide to do in your department as well. Once we had agreed on the learning outcomes we were going to work on and the pieces within them, we then split up to do our own individual planning for this unit of work. To see the results of our individual planning efforts for this unit of work for the September to October break, please watch the other short videos below.